Hello, happy writers! I'm Steve Somin, and as promised in my previous video, my introduction, I'm going to start bringing things back to basics. And this is what this series is going to be about, and this is You Are Gonna Be a Writer series. So, let's get started. It has occurred to me that when people ask about plots and how to make a story better, the advice is always research the hero's journey, look into the three-act play or the story circle. The closest anyone comes to the fundamentals is a passing note to the idea of beginning, middle, and end. Okay, well, I think sometimes we really need to understand the fundamentals of beginning, middle, and end and what is storytelling. So, here is my list of 6 things you need to know about storytelling. Number 1, telling stories. Telling stories. So, who tells stories? Well, you do. It's such a fundamental part of being human that it's something that we use for communication every single day. So, whether it's a mundane story like, what did I do yesterday? Or the more exciting stories like, the most dangerous thing I've ever done is blah, 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 blah. As such, we are natural storytellers. The difference is, some people are better than others at telling stories. Or another truth is, the first telling of a story is not as good as the 100th telling. As we edit the story, add to it, and revise it to be more interesting, exciting, or scary. This is similar to the idea of drafting. The thing is that people who understand the functions of beginning, middle, and end start with better stories in the first place, and they are considered good storytellers. Number 2, beginning. Okay, where do I start my story? Or questions like this litter the writing forums. So much so that you can find a host of answers revolving around introduce your character, set the scene, start just before the main action, start with action, avoid cliche openings. So, is this really helping? Because these answers are everywhere. If these were the answers that they were looking for, I think people would probably not be asking this question, or questions similar to this. So, let's look at the beginning. The beginning is the introduction, and for me, you can choose to disagree, it has a specific function, and that is to answer 4 questions. When, where, who, what? When does the story take place? Where do the events unfold? Who is involved? What is the driving element of the story? Well, this is best exemplified by fairy tales and that cliche opening. Once upon a time. Of course, for a book, this would be done over several paragraphs, but the essence is the function remains. We answer when, where, who, what. Number 3, middle. Okay, the middle is the bulk of the story itself, hence being called the body. And this is the how of the story, and at the core is a retelling of the sequence of events driving the listener or reader toward the end. Now, a story may just lay out the steps taken to the end of the story with no challenges or obstacles, almost like listening to the steps of a recipe. Whereas more interesting stories have challenges, failures, and obfuscation that holds a person's attention. Either way, they are both legitimate forms of the body, and not every story requires more than a step-by-step recounting of events. Just think about what you did yesterday as a story. Number 4, the end. Okay, the end is the conclusion. This is the whole point of telling a story in the first place. It is the inevitable result of the events from the body. I would argue this is the most important part of the story, as the story was always leading to this point, and as such is a place where expectations are resolved. This is a part of the story where it would be good to have some kind of surprise, especially for humorous or shocking effect. But bear in mind, sometimes a surprise can be a disappointment if it results in an ending that the audience feel was promised from the start, not being actualised. Should the story have no ending or fails to conclude, then I would call it a rambling bore. I'm sure we can all agree that the most boring people are those who do not know how to end their stories and just ramble on and on, not making a point with no apparent ending in sight. Number 5. The journey. Okay, for me, a story is similar to a journey. When you're thinking about a journey, there's 2 pieces of information that you really do need to have in order to make a plan for your travelling. Okay, so what are those? Well, you need to know the starting point and the end point. If you know those, then everything else just sort of falls into place. So imagine you're going to travel from New York to the moon. I'm going to put a bet on the bulk of your journey is not going to include getting there by bus. So, if we know the beginning of the story, the end of the story, then it's easier to plan the in-between. Everything should fall into place. So, it's important to start thinking about the story more like a journey. Number 6. Narratives. Okay, if as a writer I want my reader to be able to follow my story and to understand what's happening, and to make sure that they can do this, I need to think about what kind of narrative I'm going to use. So what kind of narratives are you going to use? Are you going to use a linear narrative, which is going from beginning to end in the order things happen? Or is it a non-linear narrative, jumping around on the timeline? Now, I understand that non-linear narratives can be interesting and compelling if they're done well. Only, you have to be a fantastic storyteller to do non-linear narratives well. An example of it being done badly is, let's see, that friend. You know the one? The one that tells you stories and then has to go back because they keep forgetting important information, especially when they're telling a joke. Yes, that one. Okay, this is why I recommend linear narratives. Because the reader expects things to unfold in the order that they happen, so that they can make sense of what is happening. It's also why a lot of readers really don't like dream sequences and flashbacks. Flashbacks are just so annoying to so many people. My thoughts are, if non-linear narratives were the expected norm, then people would be telling us end, beginning, middle, not beginning, middle, end. There we have it. These are some of the things I think we need to remember about storytelling in itself, the fundamental basics of storytelling, so that we can better understand things like narrative arcs and the hero's journey, the 3-act play, and stuff like that. So, if this helped you, please let me know. And if you think there's something I missed off on my list, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, I want to lay down a challenge for you. Try to write a very short story, say about 10 sentences, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? And if you like this content and you want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe, and you'll catch more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.